My husband slapped me when I told him I was pregnant. Evan and I had been trying to have a baby for 2 years. We've had 2 years of negative tests and wondering if something was wrong with me. Then last month I missed my period. Then I took 5 tests in one sitting because I couldn't believe the first 4. When those 2 pink lines finally appeared, I sat on the bathroom floor and cried until my sister Carrie talked me down through the phone. She told me I needed to tell everyone and make it special. Don't just blurt it out over dinner. Throw a party, invite everyone who matters. Turn this into a memory we'd tell our kid about someday. So that's exactly what I did. 7 weeks later, my house was packed with everyone I loved. My parents stood by the appetizer table. Carrie kept shooting me excited glances from across the room. Evan's parents had flown in from Arizona, and his younger brother Jeff had shown up early to help me set chairs and arrange the gift table. Evan worked the crowd like he always did, shaking hands and making people laugh, being the charming husband I'd fallen for 6 years ago. I watched him from the kitchen doorway and felt my heart swell. Tonight, I was going to make him the happiest man alive. I grabbed a fork, tapped it against my wine glass, and the room slowly went quiet. 40 faces turned toward me. My mom was already tearing up and she didn't even know yet. Evan made his way through the crowd and stood beside me, his arm wrapping around my waist. He looked at me with warm, curious eyes, completely clueless as to what I was about to say. "Thank you all for coming," I said, my voice shaking a little. "I know some of you traveled really far, and I promise it's worth it." I looked up at Evan and smiled. "We're having a baby. I'm pregnant." The room exploded. My mom screamed. My dad started clapping so hard I thought he'd hurt his hands. Carrie was jumping up and down yelling, "I knew it," even though she actually did know. Everyone was hugging and crying, and the energy in that room felt like pure love. I turned to Evan, expecting him to lift me up or spin me around or do something romantic. Instead, he was frozen. His arm had dropped from my waist. His face had gone completely white. "Evan?" I reached for him. "Baby, aren't you excited? We're finally going to be parents." And that's when it came. The slap to my face that hit so hard I crashed backward into the gift table. The pain was instant and blinding, like someone had taken a hot skillet and pressed it flat against my skin. The music kept playing for 3 more seconds before someone killed it, and then there was nothing. Just silence. Just the ringing in my ear where his hand had landed. I looked up at my husband from the floor and didn't recognize the man standing over me. His face was twisted into something ugly, his chest heaving, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. "You cheating whore!" he yelled. "You really thought you could pass off someone else's baby as mine?" I couldn't speak. My cheek was on fire and my brain couldn't process what was happening. "Evan, what are you talking about?" I finally managed. "I've never cheated on you. I would never do that to you." He laughed and it sounded like something breaking. "Stop lying." He was screaming now, veins bulging in his neck, spit flying from his mouth. "You can't be pregnant with my baby Marina. I had a vasectomy 4 years ago before we even got married. I can't have babies." The words hit me harder than his hand did. A vasectomy. 4 years ago. He'd been letting me cry over negative tests for 2 years, knowing the whole time it was impossible. "So whose is it?" he continued, his voice getting louder. "Who have you been sleeping with behind my back? How long has this been going on?" The room was still dead silent. My mother had her hand over her mouth, tears streaming down her face. My father looked like he wanted to end someone but couldn't make his legs move. And then someone was kneeling beside me, warm hands on my shoulders, helping me sit up, brushing glass away from my dress. I looked and it was Jeff, his face pale with shock as he stared at his brother like he was seeing a monster. "What the hell is wrong with you?" Jeff said, his voice shaking with anger. "You just hit your pregnant wife in front of everyone." He helped me to my feet and positioned himself between me and Evan like a shield. Evan was pacing back and forth like a caged animal, running his hands through his hair. 2 years I let you make me feel guilty for not giving you a baby. And this whole time you were spreading your legs for someone else?" He turned to the room, arms wide, like he was inviting everyone to see what I really was. Look at her. Look at her standing there pretending to be confused. She knows exactly what she did. She knows exactly whose baby that is. So there I was, face-stinging entire family watching accused of cheating by my own husband. And the worst part? Evan had proof. A vasectomy I never knew about. In his mind, this pregnancy was impossible unless I slept with someone else. I demanded a paternity test. It would take a week to come back. 7 days until I could prove I was innocent. But I didn't know that those 7 days would be the worst of my life. Because while I waited for science to save me, everyone I loved was about to turn on me. Everyone left the party without saying goodbye. They just grabbed their coats and filed out one by one, eyes down, mouths shut. My parents were the last to go. My father hugged me so tight it hurt and whispered, "I'll kill him if you want me to." But I shook my head because I still believed this was a misunderstanding. When the door finally closed, I turned around and Evan was already walking toward our bedroom. "Evan," I said. My voice came out smaller than I wanted it to. "Please just listen to me. I don't know how to explain this, but I haven't been with anyone else. You're the only man I've been with in 6 years. There has to be another explanation." He laughed, but there was no humor in it. Just this cold, empty sound that made me feel sick. "Another explanation? For how you got pregnant by a man who can't make babies?" He took a step toward me. I flinched. I actually flinched away from my own husband, and I watched that register on his face. For half a second, something flickered in his eyes. Guilt, maybe. Or recognition of what he'd done. But then it was gone, replaced by that hard, angry mask. "I'd love to hear it, Marina. Really. Enlighten me." I had nothing. No explanation. No defense except my own word, which clearly meant nothing to him anymore. Then let's do a paternity test, I said. Let's prove it scientifically. Because when that test comes back showing you're the father, you're going to have to live with how you treated me tonight. You're going to have to look me in the eyes knowing you hit me and called me those things and humiliated me in front of everyone I love. Something changed in his expression. Doubt, maybe. Or fear. He was quiet for a long moment and I let the silence stretch because I needed him to feel the weight of what he'd done. Fine, he finally said. First thing tomorrow. We sat in the clinic waiting room like two strangers sharing a bus stop. Evan sat 4 chairs away from me with his arms crossed and his jaw clenched so tight I could see the muscles jumping under his skin. Every few minutes he'd glance at me and then look away like even the sight of me made him sick. I wanted to scream at him. I wanted to grab his face and force him to look at me, really look at me, and see that I was telling the truth. But I just sat there with my hands folded in my lap, staring at the wall, trying not to cry in public. The nurse called my name first, and I went alone because Evan refused to be in the same room while they drew my blood. Afterwards, she told me I'd have to wait 7 to 10 business days. I sighed heavily. That meant 7 to 10 days of this hell. I nodded and thanked her and walked back to the waiting room on legs that didn't feel like mine. The texts from his family started on day 2. His mother went first. I always knew you were a whore. Now my whole family knows it too. His sister followed an hour later. You disgust me. I hope you lose that baby. His aunt sent a paragraph about how she'd warned Evan not to marry me, how she'd seen the trash in me from day 1, how I'd fooled everyone with my nice girl act, but now the mask was off. His cousin sent a photo of me from the party, mid-fall, with the caption, "Cheaters always get what they deserve." I sat on my bed reading message after message until my phone screen blurred from tears. These people had hugged me at holidays. They'd sent me birthday cards. They told me I was part of the family. Now they were calling me names I'd never been called in my life, and wishing harm on my unborn child. I turned off my phone because I couldn't take anymore. Carrie came over that afternoon and found me still in bed. She climbed in next to me like we were kids again and held me while I cried. "You need to leave him," she said softly. "He hit you, Marina. In front of witnesses. You could press charges. You could take him for everything." My mother called that night saying the same thing. So did my father. So did everyone in my family who reached out. Leave him, sue him, make him pay. But I couldn't. Not yet. Because the test would prove I was innocent and then everything would go back to normal. It had to. I lay awake that night with my hand on my stomach, trying to feel something. Some connection to the life growing inside me. But all I felt was doubt. What if Evan was right? What if the vasectomy made it impossible? What if somehow, some way, something had happened that I couldn't remember? The thought made me sick, but I couldn't stop it from creeping in. I went through every night of the past 3 months in my head. Every time Evan and I had been together. Every moment I'd been alone. Nothing made sense. I knew I hadn't cheated. I knew it in my bones. But if Evan really couldn't have children, then whose baby was this? On day 4, Jeff knocked on my door holding a bag of takeout. "Figured you weren't eating," he said. His voice was gentle and his eyes were soft with concern. I hadn't showered in 2 days. I was wearing the same sweatpants I'd slept in, and my hair was tangled into a mess on top of my head. I looked like a mess. But Jeff didn't seem to notice or care. He just stood there on my porch waiting patiently for me to let him in. And I did. We sat at the kitchen table and Jeff unpacked containers of lo mein and fried rice and orange chicken. He didn't ask me what happened. He didn't ask me to explain myself or defend myself or prove anything. He just handed me a fork and said, "Eat something, please." So I did. Small bites at first because I had zero appetite. But the food was warm and the company was warmer and slowly I started to feel almost human again. Jeff talked about stupid things. A movie he'd seen last week. A coworker who kept microwaving fish in the office and stinking up the whole place. His neighbor's dog that barked at 3 in the morning every single night. He filled the silence with easy conversation that didn't require anything from me except to listen. And when I finally started crying, which I knew I would, he didn't panic or pull away. He just moved his chair closer and put his arm around my shoulders and let me fall apart. "I didn't do anything wrong," I said between sobs. "I know you probably think I did, but I swear, Jeff, I have never been with anyone except your brother. I don't know how this happened. I don't understand any of this." He rubbed slow circles on my back and shook his head. "I believe you," he said quietly. "I don't know what's going on, but I know you're not that kind of person. Anyone who spent 5 minutes with you knows that." I cried harder because after 4 days of being treated like a criminal, someone finally saw me. Someone finally believed me without demanding proof. Jeff stayed for 2 more hours. He washed the dishes even though I told him not to. He made sure I had his number saved in my phone in case I needed anything. And when he left, he hugged me at the door and told me to call him anytime, day or night, if everything got too heavy. I watched him drive away and felt something I hadn't felt in days. Hope. Someone was actually on my side and not trying to tell me what to do or berating me left and right. I survived the week from hell. Evan's family calling me every name. Carrie begging me to leave him. Evan looking through me like I was already gone. The only person who didn't treat me like a criminal was Jeff. He checked on me every day, brought me food when I couldn't eat, told me Evan was wrong for what he did. But I held on because the test results were finally here. This was my proof, my vindication. Except when I opened that envelope, I didn't find salvation. I found something that made everything 1,000 times worse. 3 more days passed before the envelope arrived. Jeff checked on me a few times and brought food when he could, But mostly I was alone in a house where my husband lived 20 feet away and acted like I didn't exist. Evan had been locked in the guest room since the night of the party. He'd leave for work before I woke up. He'd come home after I'd already gone to bed. The only sign he was still living there was the coffee mug in the sink every morning, and the sound of the guest room door clicking shut every night. We existed in the same house like ghosts who couldn't see each other. Sometimes I'd stand outside the guest room door with my hand raised, ready to knock, ready to try one more time, but I never did. What was the point? He'd made up his mind about me. The only thing that would change it was proof. And proof was coming. When the mail truck finally pulled up on day 7, I was standing at the window like I'd been doing every afternoon. My heart jumped into my throat the second I saw the white envelope in the mailman's hand, clinic logo in the corner, my name printed on the front, my entire future folded up inside a single piece of paper. I ran outside in my bare feet, not caring that the concrete was cold, not caring that I was still in my pajamas. I grabbed the envelope from his hands before he could put it in the box. He gave me a strange look, but I didn't care. I didn't care about anything except what was inside. I held it against my chest and felt my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. This was it. This was finally it. 7 days of hell were about to end. I was about to be vindicated. I called Jeff first. I don't know why. Maybe because he was the only person who'd believed me. Maybe because I needed someone in my corner when I finally proved the world wrong. He answered on the second ring. The results came, I said, and I could hear the hope in my own voice. They're here, Jeff. I'm holding them right now. He told me he'd be there in 10 minutes and to wait for him before I opened anything. I agreed because I wanted witnesses. I wanted everyone to see the moment I was proven innocent. Then I went to the guest room door and knocked. No answer. I knocked again, harder this time. Evan, I called through the door. The results are here. Come out. I want you to see this with your own eyes. I pressed my ear against the wood and heard movement inside. Footsteps. The creak of the bed. Then silence. I knocked a third time. I'm not going away. This affects both of us and you're going to be here when I open it. More silence. Then finally the lock clicked. The door swung open and Evan stood there looking at me with empty eyes. He'd lost weight in the past week. His face was pale and there were dark circles under his eyes like he hadn't been sleeping either. For half a second I felt sorry for him. Then I remembered the slap. I remembered the names he'd called me. I remembered the way he'd turned the whole room against me. The sympathy disappeared. He didn't say a word. He just walked past me toward the kitchen and sat down at the table with his arms crossed, waiting. I followed him and placed the envelope in the center of the table between us. Neither of us touched it. We just stared at it like it might explode. Jeff arrived 5 minutes later. I heard his car pull into the driveway and went to let him in. He looked nervous, which surprised me. His eyes kept darting to the envelope on the table and then back to my face. You okay? He asked quietly. I nodded because I was more than okay. I was ready. I was finally going to prove that I hadn't done anything wrong. He followed me into the kitchen and froze when he saw Evan sitting there. The two brothers looked at each other for a long moment. Something passed between them that I couldn't read. Then Jeff pulled out a chair and sat down, positioning himself closer to me than to Evan. You haven't opened it yet, Jeff said, stating the obvious. I shook my head. I wanted witnesses. I wanted both of you to watch me open it so no one can say I tampered with anything, so no one can claim I switched the results or forged something or whatever other accusation might come next. I looked directly at Evan when I said that last part. He didn't react, just sat there with his arms crossed and his jaw tight, staring at the envelope like he was trying to set it on fire with his eyes. Jeff reached across the table and put his hand over mine. His palm was warm against my cold fingers. Whatever happens, he said softly, I'm here, okay? No matter what that paper says, I'm not going anywhere. I squeezed his hand and thanked him for being the only person who'd stood by me through this nightmare, for the only person who'd believed me when everyone else had already decided I was guilty. Evan's eyes locked onto our hands and something dark flickered across his face. His jaw tightened even more. His nostrils flared. Seriously? He laughed, but there was no humor in it. Just ice. I'm sitting right here and you're holding hands with my brother? Should I even bother reading those results or do I already have my answer? I pulled my hand away from Jeff's and stood up so fast my chair scraped against the floor. The sound was loud in the quiet kitchen. Don't you dare, I said, and my voice came out stronger than I expected. Don't you dare twist this into something it's not. Your brother is the only person who's been kind to me while you've been treating me like garbage. He's been bringing me food because I can't eat. He's been checking on me because you won't even look at me. So don't you stand there and act like I'm doing something wrong by accepting basic human kindness from the only person who's offered it. Evan rolled his eyes. Just open the envelope, Marina. I don't have all day to listen to your excuses. I took a deep breath and picked up the envelope. It felt heavier than it should, like the weight of my entire marriage was pressed into that single piece of paper. I looked at Evan and felt something surge in my chest. Confidence. Certainty. I knew I hadn't cheated. I knew I hadn't been with anyone else. Whatever was in this envelope was going to prove it. And then he was going to have to look me in the eyes and apologize for everything he'd put me through. I held onto that image as I slid my finger under the seal. The sound of the paper tearing was impossibly loud. I pulled out the single sheet inside and unfolded it slowly, savoring the moment. This was it. This was my vindication. My eyes scanned the words at the top. Medical terminology. Reference numbers. My name. Evan's name. And then the results. I read them once. My brain didn't process what I was seeing. I read them again. The words were the same, but they still didn't make sense. I read them a third time and the paper started shaking in my hands. No. No, 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 no. This wasn't right. This couldn't be right. There had to be a mistake, a typo, a mix-up at the lab. Something. Anything. Because what I was reading was impossible. What does it say? Evan demanded. His voice cut through the fog in my brain. Read it out loud. I want to hear you say it. I opened my mouth but nothing came out. My throat had closed up. My lungs had stopped working. The room was tilting sideways and I had to grab the edge of the table to keep from falling over. Marina, Jeff said, and his voice sounded like it was coming from underwater. Far away. Muffled. What does it say? I looked up at my husband. At the man I'd loved for 6 years. At the man I'd built a life with. At the man who was waiting for me to confirm everything he already believed about me. Tears were streaming down my face and I couldn't stop them. It says you're not the father. The words hung in the air between us. Heavy. Final. Devastating. Evan's expression didn't change. Not even a flicker of surprise. He just sat there with his arms crossed like he'd been expecting this all along. Like he'd known from the beginning that I was exactly what he accused me of being. And there it is, he said slowly. His voice was calm now. Almost peaceful. Like a storm that had finally passed. The proof. You've been cheating on me this whole time and now you can't hide it anymore. He stood up slowly and put both hands on the table, leaning toward me until I could see every line of anger on his face. So who is it? Huh? Who's the lucky guy? Someone from work? Some random guy you met at a bar? An ex-boyfriend you never really got over? He was getting louder with each question. Tell me, Marina. I deserve to know whose baby you're carrying in my house. Whose baby you tried to trick me into raising as my own. I don't know. I sobbed. The words came out broken and desperate. I don't understand. I haven't been with anyone else, Evan. I swear on my life I haven't been with anyone else. There has to be a mistake. The lab made an error. We need to take another test. We need to... He slammed his fist on the table so hard the envelope jumped and my whole body flinched. The test isn't wrong. He was screaming now. Full volume. Veins bulging in his neck just like the night of the party. Science doesn't lie, Marina. DNA doesn't lie. The only liar in this room is you. He pointed his finger in my face and I could see his hand shaking with rage. You've been lying to me for months, maybe years, and now you're standing there crying like you're the victim? Like I'm the bad guy for being angry that my wife got pregnant by another man? I didn't do this, I screamed back at him. Something inside me broke. All the fear and confusion and desperation came pouring out as rage. I don't know how this happened, but I didn't do this. I have never been with anyone except you. Not once in 6 years. I don't understand what's happening, but I know I didn't cheat. You have to believe me, Evan. Please. I grabbed his arm, desperate for him to see me. Really see me. To look past his anger and recognize the woman he'd married. The woman who loved him. The woman who would never betray him. Please believe me. Please. I'm begging you. He shoved me away so hard I stumbled backward. My hip hit the counter and pain shot through my side. Jeff jumped up and caught me before I could fall further, his arms wrapping around me to steady me. Don't touch me, Evan snarled, and his face was twisted into something I didn't recognize. Pure hatred. Pure disgust. Don't ever touch me again. You make me sick. Looking at you right now makes me physically sick. I can't even stand to be in the same room as you. He turned to Jeff, who was still holding on to me, and his eyes narrowed. And you, my own brother, sitting here holding her hand, comforting her, being her shoulder to cry on while my marriage falls apart. He took a step toward Jeff and for a second I thought he was going to swing. Did you know about this? Did you know she was sleeping around behind my back? Have you two been laughing at me this whole time? Jeff's face went pale. His arms tightened around me almost protectively. I didn't know anything, he said quietly. His voice was steady, but I could feel his heart pounding against my back. I swear to you, Evan. I just came to support her when the results came in. That's all. I had no idea. Evan stared at his brother for a long moment, searching his face for something. Then he laughed. That horrible cold laugh that made my blood run cold. Support her. Right. Well, congratulations. She's all yours now. You can have her. I'm done. He turned and stormed toward the guest room. I heard drawers being yanked open, clothes being thrown, hangers clattering to the floor. Jeff let go of me and I stood there in the middle of the kitchen, frozen, tears streaming down my face, my whole body shaking so hard I thought my bones might rattle loose. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be happening. I'd been so sure, so completely certain that the test would save me, that science would prove what I already knew, prove I was innocent and faithful. Instead, the test had destroyed everything, and it hadn't even given me answers. It just told me Evan wasn't the father. It didn't tell me who was. It didn't explain how any of this was possible. It just left me standing in my kitchen with my whole life in pieces, and no idea how to put them back together. Evan came back 10 minutes later dragging 2 suitcases behind him. He didn't look at me as he walked toward the front door. His face was set in stone. His eyes were fixed straight ahead, like I was already invisible to him. Evan, wait, I begged, running after him. I grabbed the back of his shirt and he spun around so fast I stumbled backward. Don't touch me, he said through clenched teeth. What part of that don't you understand? I held up my hands in surrender, tears blurring my vision. Please, we can figure this out. We can take another test. Something is wrong. Something doesn't make sense. I know I didn't cheat, Evan. I know it. There has to be an explanation. He stared at me for a long moment, and for just a second, I saw something flicker in his eyes. Doubt, maybe. Or sadness. or the ghost of the man he used to be. Then it was gone, replaced by that cold, hard mask. The only thing that doesn't make sense is how I didn't see what you really were sooner. My mother was right about you. My whole family was right about you. I should have listened to them from the beginning. He picked up his suitcases and opened the front door. I'm staying with Felix until I figure out what to do about the house. Don't call me. Don't text me. Don't try to contact me at all. As far as I'm concerned, you don't exist anymore. The door slammed behind him so hard the pictures on the wall rattled. Then his car started. Then he was gone. And I was alone. I collapsed onto the kitchen floor and cried so hard I thought I might shatter into 1,000 pieces. Jeff knelt down beside me and tried to put his arm around me, but I pushed him away. I didn't want comfort. I didn't want kindness. I wanted answers. Because I knew